Hey everyone, welcome to today's AMA. I didn't announce that I was going to do this today, but I had so many questions from last week that I wanted to go over that I just couldn't get to. I just felt like, oh my gosh, I just have to get this done. And maybe if I don't tell anyone, it'll at least be there for later. So for those that who've never joined me before, hello, I'm Victoria Mull. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. I run the channel Contempo Coding, which is an on-demand education resource provider for medical coders. And I like to go live to answer a lot of different questions that are getting submitted to me through all kinds of various just opportunities that I have. A lot of social media. I do so much social media stuff. So I get questions through Instagram, through YouTube, through email, through Facebook, and I can't even keep track of it anymore. So what I do is I like to compile all of those questions and just go through and answer all of them on AMAs. And I'm planning on doing a lot more of these in 2021 because I am going to be going full-time on my YouTube business, on my education business, and then taking some contract stuff as well. So doing some medical coding still, but then also focusing on helping you guys get into medical coding as well. I just want to say hello to some people in the chat. So hello to Ubasi's Purr, hello to Isabel, Amaya, Amanda Wiley. Thank you guys so much. Yes, thank you for catching me live. I'm really excited. So if you guys have questions, drop them in the chat. I also have some cool new different features that I have. I just got this little deck that helps me kind of pop my things in and out. So if you are here for your first time, make sure you give me a big thumbs up. And if you have not been to my channel yet, make sure you subscribe because you want to get alerts if I'm going live like this kind of unexpectedly. It'll definitely be something you want to catch. So if anyone has questions, hello there, Maya. Thanks for popping in. Feel free to drop them in the chat. But today I want to go over a lot of the questions that I've just had over the past couple of weeks. And one of the first ones that I had, and I think I covered this last time, but I just want to go over a little bit more about it, is about medical terminology. And do you need to know medical terminology in order to be a medical coder? So one of the first things I want to say about that as someone who is working in the healthcare industry, you are expected to kind of know the lingo. That doesn't mean you have to know everything off of the top of your head immediately, but there's a couple of key things I want to discuss. First off is that when you are sitting for any kind of medical coding certification, except for a couple of specialty ones, you're not allowed a medical dictionary. Especially, I know specifically the CPC exam through the AAPC does not allow a medical dictionary. So you have to know that to even get that certification. Second is that medical coding positions are often productivity based, which means that there are expectations that maybe if you're doing surgeries, you might have to code 8 surgical cases in an hour or 10 surgical cases in an hour. It depends on kind of what you're doing. So the more time that you're stopping and looking things up, that can affect your productivity. Also, you have to communicate probably with providers or practice managers or other people. So as you're doing that, you are going to want to be able to articulate things very well. You're going to want to understand what providers are communicating to you. So again, it's not that you have to have clinical knowledge. You don't have to know how to set up a catheter, but you kind of need to know what the essentials of that are, like what that might kind of look like. You have to know the terms that are involved in all those things. So that's why you need to know medical terminology. There are people out there that I have heard say, oh, well, you don't really need to learn medical terminology to be a medical coder. And I think that very much demeans what a medical coder does. There's a lot more involved than just looking things up in books. It is understanding that broad spectrum of medical services. And I think, people have said in the past that there's a lot of automation that's going on in medical coding. And yes, there is automation going on. It's not going to eliminate our jobs, but it is going to make them to the point that we're going to have maybe more of a clinical understanding, not clinical expertise that we physically can do these things, but we do need to know what they are because there's going to be a lot more, I think, just expertise expected of a medical coding position, especially when it comes to things like identifying medical necessity or identifying a severity of illness that's going to impact what we do. So it really is important. But yes, when you are working in a medical coding setting for your first job and you don't know what a term is, you can look it up on your phone, and after you do it 1 or 2 times, then you start to remember it after a while. Or if maybe there's some that you just a handful of ones you can't remember, you can write them down in your book. Maybe every time you look up a certain code, because you only code it every now and then, you can't remember what the heck that is and you want to write a notation. Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely. So I've got a question here. How long did it take you to learn how to code? I'm learning so much in my coding class. And when do you get to a place where you know all of this and it's second nature? So I can tell you, I've been coding for over a decade now, and I couldn't code. There's certain things I can't code. There's certain things that, I shouldn't say I can't code, but a lot of cardiothoracic stuff. It might take me 40 minutes to dissect an operative report, and I still kind of want to shuffle it off to one of my friends and go, did I do this right? Because I think I did. Everything I researched looks right, but I'm just not feeling super confident about it. So as far as just your base knowledge, though, it really depends on how much time you're investing. Someone who has a lot of time to invest, if you're single and don't have kids at home that are virtual schooling and all kinds of stuff, you might be able to have more time to dedicate. I've known a lot of people that have done it, in just a few months, maybe 3 months, and they feel pretty good about it. My coding, I went through a billing coding specialist certificate through my community college. I think that was 9 months. And then I spent maybe 2 months, maybe 3, going through just a CPC prep course with an instructor. And that just met every week or every other week. And I think shortly after that, I started feeling comfortable, at least coding things. I was very rough around the edges at first, but you build up on things. And coding is I like to equate it sometimes to nursing. Nurses, even though they're a nurse and they technically can do a broad spectrum of things, they like to specialize. There's nurses who really like pediatrics and they just do pediatrics. And could you take them and have them do neurosurgery? Yes. It would probably take a while, though, for them to get up to speed for that if they've been doing pediatrics for a while. Same kind of thing with coding. We know we kind of specialize in 1 or 2 or 3 areas, and not that we can't do others, but it's easier for us to concentrate on a handful of things. So I wanted to say hello to some people in the chat. I think I saw Seno Benny. Yes, there's Seno Benny. Hello in the chat. Great to see you here. Fahad. Oh, wonderful to see you here too. But yeah, I'm glad that a lot of you are learning things. It does take a while. It does take a while to gain that confidence. And like I said, even I there's certain types of coding that I don't even like. The person who, I think this might be his last year on the National Advisory Board for the AAPC, but Mike Misko, he's always said that he doesn't like OBGYN. He's just decided that it's too hard and he doesn't like to do it, so he doesn't do any of that. You have to know about this much to pass your exam, the basics of it. But if you don't like that type of coding, then you don't have to get into that type of coding, Yeah, and you're very welcome for answering the question. So let me see what I've got here. So if you guys haven't joined membership yet, just a quick heads up, there is a membership that you can join if you like to support the channel and support membership. You can join the channel membership. And what I do is I have a couple of different tiers. So every tier of membership gets custom emojis, you get community only posts, but I also will periodically post some free CEU content as well. So if you need CEUs and you're a paid member, I guess I shouldn't call it free if you're paying for membership, but there are some CEUs that I do offer for courses just for the people that are paid members of my channel. You just hit that join button down there, and there's ones that are $1.99 a month up to $9.99 a month. And then the more you pay, you can get different benefits, like the $9.99 a month. People get a blooper reel and just outtakes and stuff, but you do not have to join. You still get all kinds of cool content and my live streams, and you can ask your questions too. So someone's asking, can you tell me more about the field of coding job opportunities in Europe? That is one aspect that I am very short on. I don't know a lot about how coding works in other countries. I know there's different ICD versions in different countries, like Australia has their own clinical, we have a clinical modification in US that this ICD-10-CM. They have something else in Australia. I know other countries use different versions of ICD-10. But as far as what the job opportunities are, that's something I've personally not had a lot of experience with. Like if you can work in, the UK, but have a job that's in the US, or what if there's medical coding jobs in other countries. I'm not too sure about how that works off because I just don't have a lot of hands-on experience with that in particular. So Faye Wynn, hello. Good to see you today in the chat. But yeah, I know I've gotten a lot of emails about people who are in other countries and want to start working for jobs in the US and not having the intimate experience with that. I know there are opportunities, that there are offshore coders that work in other countries and have jobs for US based companies. But as far as the ins and outs of that, like I know Harmony Healthcare hires a lot of people that work in other countries, but as far as what the regulations are for that is with taxes and all that, that's not something I'm super experienced on. Step by Step with Priyanka says, please make videos on solving E&M reports. So I do have a handful of E&M stuff. If you go in the playlist section of the channels, I have some step-by-step E&M coding, and then I think I have some things for the 2021 updates. I do have some resources available on my paid courses for the 2021 updates as well. And I do think there is, if you go to the case studies, my coding case studies that I've been doing for the month of December, there is one, I think one of the first ones I did was a step-by-step E&M coding case, and then there's an auditing case that I went through as well. Okay. So what else have I got here? So other questions. So someone asked me, Erica says, do you have any experience with the Optum 360 risk adjustment HCC book? So that is, Optum makes really good books. I actually really love their, I'm pretty sure it's Optum. Yeah, Optum's version of the ICD-10-CM book I like because it has the guidelines for each chapter at the beginning of that chapter. And that I think is a great book. As far as risk adjustment, my huge recommendation, and I think I have this linked maybe in my description in my videos, if not, it is one of my top books. I always recommend it if you want to learn risk adjustment coding. The Bible of Risk Adjustment is the book Risk Adjustment Documentation by Sherry Poe Bernard. It's by the AMA. You can find it also on Amazon. Risk Adjustment Documentation and Coding. That is fantastic. It is the Bible. It will tell you everything you need to know about risk adjustment. If your goal is to pass the CRC exam, like you want to know information about passing the CRC exam, you want to get the CRC study guide from the AAPC, because there's different logistics of how people view things, of how healthcare institutions and how insurances view things with risk adjustment, and you want to know what they're going to test you on for that CRC exam, then you need the CRC study guide. That's the book you want to get. Someone's asking, Jaxie's saying, how about freelance? Does it require a previous work experience? So freelancing in medical coding is, there's a lot of contract opportunities in medical coding. And I think oftentimes they get these big projects where they go, oh, we have a huge cleanup, we have a big review that needs to get done, we need 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 different coders, but they're contractual. And not everyone wants to do contract work, because the issue with contract work is you don't get benefits. So they won't give you retirement, they won't give you, health insurance. But if you're someone who has health insurance through a spouse, or you can pay for your own health insurance through the Affordable Care Act, because sometimes if you are just covering yourself and that's it, there are a lot of really affordable options. And in that case, you can take the advantage of some of those contractual positions that tend to pay better because they're not paying you benefits, and they have a rush project that they're trying to get done. Those are a really good option. But sometimes they do require, depending on the project, take some more apprentice coders. I don't know that I have this set up here, but let me take a look. So what you can do is if you go on codersdirect.com, there's a little filter box that you can set for CPCA, which is your apprentice status. So if you filter that for the apprentice status positions or even the CCA, you can narrow down your scope to jobs that are just willing to accept apprentice coders. And that way you know right off the bat that those are positions that will take people that don't have the 2 years, 3 years, 4 years of experience. Someone says the case study videos are very helpful with breaking down. Will you still continue to make them? So I'm a little bit cautious right now about some of the case studies. I try to be very careful with not showing a large amount of content of the CPT book because I know the AMA is very protective, and rightfully so, of their copyright, to the extent that they have put little markings on that to protect their copyrights the way that they put little copyright markings on money. So I don't want to step on any toes. I feel that, sampling little things, making commentary is falling under the fair use. I just don't want to show huge amounts of it and then find out that the AMA is very upset about that. So I'm trying to, talk to them a little bit about what I'm planning on doing in the future so that I don't step on any toes there, because that's, the last thing that I need. But I'm going to do case studies as much as I can. If I have to maybe change the format of them a little bit, that is something we might have to consider. So I like the case studies. I think everyone else is like the case studies because it's just good to see that kind of over the shoulder thing where you're like literally, especially right now, because we're not in in-person classes. So how do you show someone how to use a coding book without actually opening up the coding book and showing them to, So it's a tough situation right now. So yeah. Can I please make some videos about outpatient medical coding? I can try. So I am certified in outpatient coding. I haven't done a ton of outpatient coding before. So I'm a little wet behind the ears with some of the aspects of it. Most of what I do is professional fee coding. I know I broke someone's heart the other day because they said they really wanted me to do some inpatient coding cases and talk about ICD-10, PCS, and DRGs. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I don't work in PCS and I don't do DRGs. I would love to show you. And maybe one day that is something I can work up to, but I can't, I can't just suddenly invest 4 or 5 months learning that to teach someone else for free via YouTube. Again, we'll probably, hopefully work up to at some point. But I would like to do that eventually, but it's not at the top of my priority list. One of the things I'm really trying to focus on right now is I have a course I'm going to do that's a lot of career development stuff. And that's what I'm going to focus on for 2021. And also getting the CPC course is a little bit, I don't want to say I've halted it right now, but I have a couple of options because there's an organization that basically wants me to produce a CPC course for them. And then there's also the opportunity to build it on my own. But in order to build it on my own, again, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything, that everything's got all the ducks in a row first. So just kind of, it's still on the table, but I just don't know which way we're going to be going yet until I hear some things back. So someone's saying, I'm having trouble finding a mentor here in California. I'm a member of the AAPC. Do you know of any way to obtain mentoring, and do you recommend tutoring? So the AAPC actually has a mentorship program. And I know, one of the videos I need to do is navigating some things on the AAPC website because it is hard to find. I believe they partner with, it's called Mentor City, and you can find information on the AAPC website. I'll see if I can pull something up here because it is helpful to see it if you can. But what I would do is maybe just go into Google and type in AAPC mentorship program, and that will probably bring it up. Let me just test it over here, mentorship program. Yeah, so if you go into Google and you type in AAPC mentorship program, it's like the first thing that pops up under, where the ads are, and it's called the AAPC mentorship program. Let me see if I can find where it is on the website. It might be under the resources. Yes. So if you go to the AAPC website, under the resources tab, and then career enhancement, there's one that says mentorship. So they have their own mentorship program for coders that you can sign with the AAPC. And as far as tutors, I don't know any tutors off the top of my head. If you are a tutor and would like to tutor others, let me know, because I do have a lot of requests, and I personally right now don't do tutoring. It's something that I might open some very limited spots for in the future. But you can also check, there's I think it's tutors.com, and then there's wyzant.com, WYZANT. And there are basically tutors available that you can have for hire, that, you know, they'll give you their years of experience and how much they cost, and you can kind of select out of there. So next, what have I got on my next list? Let's see what else we got in the chat. Which one is great for future career, surgery or E&M? Wow. So right now, I would say where your money is going to be immediately is E&M, because we have these huge changes that are going on. And I think insurances, healthcare institutions, everyone is, you know, having issues figuring this out. You know, there's CMS has basically said, hey, we're going to go with whatever the AMA said. At least my Medicare contractors for CMS have said that. And, you know, there's specialty institutions that are putting out information that they think is right, and then CMS is going, nope, that's not how we interpreted that. We didn't mean that at all that way. So I think there's going to be a lot of need right now for the next maybe year or so in E&M auditing and E&M review. Also, I think once CMS pushes more E&M changes out the door, there's going to be some need there as well. Surgery, though, is very good, you know, particularly when you can specialize. I know interventional radiology and some of the more cardiac based, like the CRCC credential, any of that kind of stuff, they pay a lot higher because it is a more complex type of surgical coding, and there's a lot more reimbursement on the line. So if you don't code things correctly, or you miss something that you can bill for, you know, that's a lot of money that could be lost. And if you are a good coder at that, you can get a lot of money for them. So I think that surgery is, you know, if we're talking long term, like 5 years down the line, I would definitely go into surgery, because that's something that I think will be harder for there to be automation for. It's something that, you know, you have to read the whole report and figure out the path report and, you know, all kinds of other things that factor into that. So surgery, I would say, if you're looking long term, the next 5 years, get into. If you're looking for what's going to get me to the next position in the next year or two, I would go into E&M and kind of target there. Victoria, how long does it take you to get your CPC certificate after getting your results? Right now, it might take a little longer, because I think the AAPC is off quite a bit for the holidays. Usually, I've gotten them in maybe 10 days. I think there might be some information on the website, but usually it's not terribly long for your certificate to get to you. Keep in mind, if for any reason an employer would ask you for confirmation that you have passed that CPC credential, what you can do is give them your member ID number and your email address, and anyone who needs to verify your CPC status can go into the AAPC website, and at the very bottom there's a place where they can plug that into, put in your email address and your member ID number, or I think even your email address and your last name, and it will tell that person from HR or whoever's looking at that what certifications you have, when you obtained them, and potentially when, you know, they're good to, and that way they can verify that without actually seeing your certificate. So if someone says they need to verify that you've got that coding certificate, they can do that on the AAPC website too. Midwest Love says, hey, I start my medical coding classes on January 11th. Really excited. I'm excited for you. So let me know, how long are your classes? Are you doing a diploma program where it's like, we're going to get you done in 6 months, 9 months, or are you doing a whole associate's degree program? Let me know. Thanks for making awesome videos. They have been super helpful. Well, thank you guys. I'm doing a new, 23 viewers it says I have right now. Okay, cool. So I'm really excited. What is the next question that I have? I have so many that came through. I am a nurse looking into getting into coding and documentation specialist. I'm ready for remote work. Are there any problems of working and traveling? I would be staying in campgrounds mostly. Would having a van be secure enough, or would I be limited to a single location? Excuse me one second. So one of this is actually a good question that came up during my interview with Bertram, where we talked about, there's been this interest by a lot of people, especially because of these, tiny homes and wanting to travel and see the world and not being locked down to a mortgage and stuff, that people are looking for jobs that they can kind of do on the go, but that are steady employment. So there are opportunities for that. It really, though, depends on some of the employers and what their comfort level is. So you have to be very, very upfront with them about that being your goal, like saying, hey, I want to be a traveling coder. I want to go to campground and do that, because, some employers are very, very protective of things like, are you on a secure Wi-Fi? They want to know where you are. They want to make sure that they're attributing state taxes appropriately based off of where you are. And even things like just security. They want to make sure that, no one's going to be not even just, peeking over you and looking at your monitor at medical records, but that no one can get in, that you're not on a secure connection. I think that's a lot of their big concerns. But depending on what you're doing and depending on the security settings of your employer, they may very well allow that. But that is an upfront conversation that you need to have if your intention is to just kind of travel and code. So you're doing your diploma program. Okay, 50 credits total a year program. Awesome. That's fantastic. Jay Smooth says, does it pay to get an associate's degree, or is it just as good to get the CPC only? So the benefits of an associate's degree, it really depends on what your goals are. So an associate's degree will enable you, if you so choose, to get into a supervisor role. A lot of those supervisor roles do require an associate's degree. If you have positions where there's bigger tiers of coding. I've seen a lot of coding auditing positions now will sometimes request an associate's or bachelor's degree, but a lot of them will also count for an equivalent years of experience. So they'll say, oh, you can have a bachelor's degree or equivalent to 5 years of experience, and they'll take that in lieu of a degree. So I think one of the benefits of getting a degree program versus just going through and just getting your CPC only is you're more well-rounded. So these programs that they have, like, I'm sponsored by onlinedegree.com. I have to put a paid promotion now in here. But onlinedegree.com will help pair you up with a degree program that's suited for you. And they're not just concentrated then on just passing that CPC exam. They tell you more about billing and rev cycle and insurance and medical terminology. And I think some of these programs that are just targeted to the CPC don't have things that are quite as well-rounded as that. Not that you can't be very successful as a medical coder just going through a CPC prep course, but you'll have a wider range. You'll be more marketable going through a degree or a diploma or an associate's degree type of program. So someone says, I've watched your videos. Oh, this is Haley. I watched your videos and I've been looking into this in the recent weeks. I have been a MR and CAT scan technologist for 16 years. I'm highly interested, especially with the change in the world. I also feel the need for change personally. However, due to what I'm used to making, I'm trying to make sure I make the best decision on what part of coding is best suited for me, hoping you might have some advice. I already have spoken to the AAPC and got some basic information. So, the AAPC does publish a salary survey, so if you are monetarily driven, that's something you might want to take a look at. Medical coding jobs, if I remember correctly, are oftentimes in the 40 or 50,000 range a year to start, but there's a lot of opportunities, especially as you grow your years of experience, as you get specialty certifications. You can definitely optimize your pay through those opportunities. One of the things I do want to caution about is, it's very popular now to get additional certifications. And yes, you do get paid more oftentimes when you have additional certifications. down the line. That doesn't mean that, oh, I have my CPC, now I got 3 other certifications and my employer should pay me more. What it means is that it's going to open a lot more opportunities, that you could maybe transition from a, coding coordinator to a coding specialist to a charge master to a, billing supervisor, that there's more broad breadth of opportunities available because you have additional certifications or auditing. Auditing is going to be, I think, the future of medical coding, being able to identify those errors and not only just identify them, but articulate what the issue was and figuring out how to correct them. And that's something I'm often very, I don't want to say bad at, but I could grow a little bit more in that area, because while I can identify the areas, I'm not always the person who's like, oh yeah, all you have to do is fix this in the EMR and have the doctor do this. And then the technical portion of how to get to that fixing of it is not my strong suit. Like, I know here's the problem, but getting the steps all into place to get the right people coordinated to get that fixed is something else. And those are positions too that will pay you a lot more. And if you have the associate's degree, the diplomas, where you're more well-rounded and all that different stuff going on, that's something you can probably grow into. But as far as if you're working maybe as a technologist, I would say maybe try to get into inpatient coding, because that is one that is, if you have a more clinical background, inpatient coding is a little bit more clinically driven. If you already have some clinical knowledge, it might be easier for you to get into it, and that's one that tends to pay more. I know I saw my friend Marissa Lynn. Hello. I know I still have to get back to your email, Marissa. I will get back to it soon. But I have something for you for being a loyal viewer for a while. I have some stuff coming up, and I think I want you to help me out with. So I have someone that messaged me on Instagram and says, hi, I don't know if you answer questions here, but I'm trying to get into medical billing and coding. There's an online class through Texas Tech I'm looking to take, and I'm just waiting to see how I'll get the funds for it. I have a bachelor's in psychology, but I haven't gone anywhere with it, and I want to finally feel more independent and take care of myself. Do you think this is a way to do that? Also, are there places to look for medical billing or coding internships that you know of? So that is something that I think is I think it's a great transition. If you're already doing something that's kind of medically inclined, getting into medical billing and coding would be a good transition for you. Especially, I know a lot of people right now are looking for things that they can do for home that may offer a little bit more flexibility. Now, I think that Texas Tech, I don't know particularly about them. I always say, there's so many programs out there right now through all of the different technical schools and community colleges, and I can't possibly know, everything that's going on in every state. That's why I partnered with onlinedegree.com, so that they will ask the questions that I would have asked and get people in the right direction for a legitimate program that will offer them books and financing and all that stuff. If you're interested in that, check the link below, because I do have a link to my onlinedegree.com. And full disclosure, I do get a commission for any students that enroll through that program. But again, it was specially set up for me and my viewers, so that it's essentially like the program it's directed the way that I would direct it. So are there any places to look for medical billing and or coding internships that I know of? I know AAPC has a Project Extern that they offer some internships. And I honestly, that's one thing I'm not quite sure what's going on out there. And if anyone has experience with this in the chat, let me know. But I haven't heard a lot about what's going on with the medical billing and coding internships now that we've gone so much into the virtual setting. I know there's been some programs near me that have had to either slow down or shut down, not even because they weren't having successful students, but they were just having trouble meeting those internship requirements that some of the organizations around here just said it's sad, but they just go, oh, well, we're too busy. We don't have time to train interns for them to leave after 6 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever. But definitely check out the AAPC's Project Externship. The other thing you can do is, if you go to some of your local healthcare organizations and see if maybe they have an HR number, you can call them directly and just pose the question and say, hey, do you offer internship type of programs? Someone's asking, oh, this is my favorite question. What do you think about the future of medical coding? Some of my friends told me that in a few years, some kind of software solve these reports and there will be no need for medical coders in the future. So let me tell you, to some degree, the future is already here. There are already programs that do read op reports. There are already programs that pick diagnosis codes for providers. So what happens is the provider will type their whole documentation, or they'll dictate it. They'll get their microphone or whatever and go, MRN 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and patient presents with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and they'll start dictating. The problem with that is the provider will go through their whole note and they'll say the patient has diabetes. They'll go into their EMR and they'll type in diabetes and they'll go, oh yeah, they have diabetic nephropathy, and they'll drop the code for diabetic nephropathy. Well, what does their documentation say? Diabetes. It doesn't say diabetic nephropathy. So some of these systems are really only as good as the users. And there are encoder programs where they kind of try to pick things apart from medical records. And the problem is it's very, very subjective. Like, I don't know if you've used programs maybe like Grammarly, where they go through and say, hey, you didn't structure a sentence right, or the tone of this sounds like such and such. And so, yeah, so RAI is getting very good at things, but can Grammarly go through and, translate that into a code set, especially based off of a lot of subjective things like insurance? Yeah, that's kind of tough. I mean, even Alexa, I ask her things and she has no idea what I'm doing. So the AI isn't there. I'm not saying it never will be. It could very well in the future. Do I think medical coding is going to just kind of be died down like transcription? Absolutely not. I think there's going to be some transformations in medical coding. I think it's going to go a lot towards auditing in the future. And I think there's going to be more demand for us to have clinical backgrounds. Not saying you need to know how to do surgery, but you need to know clinically the indications of the surgery. What are the diagnoses that go with why those patients are having that kind of surgery? What are the complications and risks? Just that clinical information of that. So no, there's absolutely no elimination of medical coding in the future. I think there's definitely going to be some transformations in medical coding. One thing that's happening too is, especially since the Affordable Care Act, is that we're moving a lot more towards value-based care, a lot more towards quality measures, a lot more towards, in the inpatient setting. And you may have heard this because of COVID. They say like, oh, well, they like to diagnose patients with COVID because they get paid more. Well, absolutely, that is true. We do get paid more for patients that go to the hospital and have COVID. We also get paid more for patients that go to the hospital and have sepsis, or we get paid more for patients that go to the hospital and they have cancer. There are certain diagnoses that cost a lot to treat, even if maybe we worked them up and found out that they didn't have it. It's still that we would still work them up the same way. So it does cost a lot more. So what's happening now is they've done that a lot in the inpatient setting, where they'll say, oh, well, a patient who has all these different diagnoses, they're assigned this DRG, and that's the money you're going to get, because don't give them unnecessary testing, don't do any extra stuff, because that's all the money you're getting. And they're starting to do that more in the outpatient setting, where they're saying, hey, your family care provider, we want you to make sure that this patient is taken care of. We don't want you to ignore that they've got these other medical conditions because someone else, should be taking care of them, or you're not looking at the patient as a whole. So there's a lot more that's involved in just assuring that we are providing quality care to patients. And we do that through risk adjustment coding, through their diagnosis contributes to that as well, that we're looking at patients and going, oh yeah, our patients that have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease and cancer and AFib, they're going to cost us more to take care of. And if, we can do a good job taking care of them and keep them out of the most expensive hotel in America, which is the hospital, then, there's benefits to the provider now that they'll give them bonuses or incentives, and the insurances get incentives. So there's a lot more of that going on as well. And I think as that transitions, there's going to be a lot more clinical knowledge that we can develop as coders that will help expedite that. But yeah, I don't see coders are going to change anytime, at least in my career, as far as going. Someone saying, will the need for 2 to 3 years of experience as a coder change? I wish to get my start, but a buffer to wait that long for a decent paying job is discouraging. You know what? I wish if I could figure out a solution to how to help coders get jobs after they've gotten their certifications, I would be a billionaire. But I really don't feel that this is particularly exclusive to medical coding. I think this is a lot of our job opportunities these days. So, we do have positions like RNs where they've gone through a ton of training and testing and everything, and we can prove that they're quality in what they do, and they can get a job right off the bat because they're very well needed. But things like medical coding are a little bit more subjective, and sometimes it's, people are a little bit more apprehensive about hiring an inexperienced coder because that's their bottom line, that's their money. If some things aren't coded correctly, it could impact a lot of their revenue. But, on the flip side, I know a lot of people that have gone out and gotten bachelor's degrees, master's degrees in English, in engineering or animal training and what have you, and have not found jobs. So it's, and you see these jokes online all the time where it's like, oh, here's the ideal candidate for these recruiters. It's someone who has 20 years of experience and will work for $5 an hour, and it's, some little kid or something. So there's a lot of that. I think, the best recommendations I can give are still go to codersdirect.com, get your internships, externships if they're offered them. I think that's one of the things that is more beneficial when you have a degree or diploma versus just having it pass the CPC exam, is that you can demonstrate that you've had a wider range of education. So as far as will the years of experience change, I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. I know there's been some discussions about getting the apprenticeship status removed. I know there's been talks about that as far as, that happening in the next couple of years. I know there are efforts to make that happen, but if it will or will not, I really can't say anything about that. Someone joked about my saying, it's the most expensive hotel in America is the hospital. Yeah. So one of the biggest, this is my friend Tony L. Holmes who says this, but she says one of the biggest cause of, if I remember correctly, bankruptcy in the United States is medical debt, because people can't pay their medical bills. And it's just very, it's something else, I know there's a lot of political opinions about healthcare and whether the government should fund that or not, but it's very sad when people lose their homes and everything because they just had an accident and wound up in the hospital. Someone's saying they're going through an associate's degree program in HIM to get in. Do you think that might get you in the door? If you're partnered very well with your college, I would say work with them a lot to see if they know anyone that takes interns or externs, or if they could partner you with someone that they know has graduated from there before and has a job and might be able to recommend and say, hey, I went through this program. It was a good program. I'm a good employee. This person also went through this program. They're probably also going to be a good employee. That might help you get kind of a leg up in this situation. Okay, so I have a question from Gypsy Rose. Hello, I came across your YouTube channel and I've learned a lot. I was wondering if you could explain CPT Assist. I know it's a subscription and I've read about it in the book. I just don't know how to use it or when I come across it in the code selection, how you can help me out. I'm a first-time coder. Yeah, let me see if I can find one here. Let me move some of my stuff and see if I can get the dock camera going. So if you've ever noticed... Ignore my bottles of essential oils. If you've ever noticed, let's see if I can find one here. There's little notations like here in your CPT book where it says CPT Assist, and this one says 98/8 January 15. So CPT Assist is actually a paid subscription service where you have to have a subscription in order to get those articles. And what they are is they're published by the AMA. And again, the AMA is like super protective of their copyrights. And they publish them at a regular interval about guidance on CPT codes. Just CPT codes is CPT Assist. And it's things like, okay, you can't unbundle these, or you can bill this code in lieu of this code, or if you're billing this type of procedure, you have to use an unlisted code, or if you don't go to this depth, you can't use this code. So it's kind of a more than meets the eye view, the deeper, and it is official guidance. It is a official coding guidance that you can take to court and hand them and say, hey, we have this CPT Assist that says to code this way. That is given by the AMA, but you have to have a paid membership to it. So it is a few $100s a year, I think, to get their archives. I like Codify from the AAPC, so I have a baseline package with them, and I think it's like $500 or something to add on the CPT Assist archives, so that if I see something that says there that there's a CPT Assist, I can type in that code and pull up that article. You can also get, I think, a subscription that just gives you like the stuff going forward. But if you want all the database stuff, like everything that's been ever published, you have to pay for memberships to that. It's usually, for a lot of the encoder programs, you can get an add-on. And I think because of the way the AMA charges them, it is several $100s for a year's worth of CPT Assist. Sometimes if you have someone in your organization, they might have like a subscription and they'll just be the kind of go-to person for that. Like, hey, if I need CPT Assist from January of 2018, I can just go to Jen and Jen will pull that for me, print it out, and be like, here's that one that you need for this coding case. So that way we don't have to pay $500 for every single coder to have a subscription for it, because there's kind of one gatekeeper, if that's what some organizations do. Maya, I'm really looking for videos on each chapter of the ICD-10-CM. I'm getting better with each chapter, but would love to have a resource for each. So I do have a playlist of the guidelines at least. Down the road, I might do a playlist too of just kind of sampling of each chapter of different diagnosis codes and do maybe some case studies of that. But you can definitely check out the guidelines video. So if you go to the main main channel page, there is a playlist on there that has a listing, and it's just ICD-10-CM guidelines, so I kind of walk you through them. Some of it is just a little bit of just reading them out so you can hear them out loud, and then I try to transition over to examples wherever I can. She says, I'm in the Penn Foster program that's all self-paced. I've heard pretty good things about the Penn Foster program. I don't think it's a terrible program. I don't know a ton of people, though, that have, at least personally, I don't know a ton of people personally that I worked with that have gone through the Penn Foster program. Maybe one. Trying to remember. It's been a while. So next. Hi, Victoria. I recently discovered your informative YouTube page. I hope you don't mind me messaging you here. I couldn't seem to find an email address. Anyway, I'm an aspiring medical coder. I'm a medical billing and coding student at Purdue University Global. I wanted to reach out and ask you some questions since I have no personal networks at the moment. You seem to be an expert as it gets. I graduate in April with my BCSC, and right after school I plan on taking the CPC exam. Good choice. After I get my CPC certification, I plan on applying to jobs. My goal is to work from home full-time after I get a job. My question is to you, what types of jobs should I look for? Should I look at outpatient settings like doctor's offices, urgent cares? Do these facilities allow remote coders after they've worked there for a while? Could I get a job working in a hospital and eventually be able to work full-time from home? So what you can do is, just going back to my discussion about codersdirect.com, what you can do is go to codersdirect.com and there's a drop option that says remote. So if you're specifically looking for remote positions, you can go there and look just for remote positions. The other thing is you can go to indeed.com, and instead of putting in a physical address, you can just type in the word remote and it'll give you all the positions that are remote. What I found is there's been historically, we'll talk about historical first. Historically, there's been a lot of organizations that they say, we want you here. We want you here for X amount of months or a year. We're going to check your accuracy. We're going to make sure you're not goofing off. We're going to make sure that you are producing appropriately. And when you get to X productivity level and X accuracy code, we'll let you work from home. And if you don't meet those criteria after that, we're pulling you back into the office. Now, having said that, things have changed in the past year. So there are still productivity expectations, accuracy expectations, but I think more organizations are recognizing that some of that training and some of that initial hands-on stuff that they used to do in office, they can do it remotely. So we're becoming a lot more inventive out of necessity. And I think there are more opportunities now for organizations that are hiring coders directly to work from home. Now, will that still be the truth in 2 years, 3 years? Once we're kind of out of the pandemic, that I'm not sure about. I don't have the magic ball to tell you one way or the other, but I think we are starting to lean more to that. One thing I will say, because I do get asked this a lot from stay-at-home moms, that I think I just got one on Instagram the other day, hey, I'm a stay-at-home mom, I want to get into medical coding, is this something that I can pursue while I'm still home watching my 2 kids, 3 kids, and that kind of depends. Historically, the organizations have said your kid has to be in school. You shouldn't be watching your kids, playing with your toddler while you're doing your medical coding because, again, accuracy, productivity. So if your kids are home, but they're teenagers or they're just very self-motivated, they're in school or they're doing whatever, then it probably won't be an issue. But if you're talking about, I want to watch my toddler run around while I'm doing medical coding, I'm going to be very honest, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. Just having been someone who's has a kid and has attempted to do anything with a toddler around is very difficult. And I just don't think that medical coding is something that you can be successful in getting your accuracy and your productivity and really truly be successful in while trying to maintain a very hectic household at the same time. So not saying no, but it would be a yes if you're in a situation where you have maybe the older kids are watching the younger kids and you can pay attention and have that dedicated time to really concentrate on your work, because it is most coding positions, except for the higher tier, maybe auditing or management ones, are hourly positions. So you can't really be, I'm working, I'm not working, I'm working, I'm not working, I'm working, I'm taking the dog out, the dog's barking, the kid's, trying to ride the dog now the kid's filling up the bathtub and trying to give the dog a bath. So that if you're supposed to be getting a certain productivity and a certain amount of clocked hours, probably not going to be as successful. Are there organizations where they are more flexible? Yes. But that's probably not something you're going to get into like right off of the bat. You could get lucky. Absolutely. You might, but not quite as likely. Someone says, it's very hard to get a coding job when you're freshly certified and people often start in billing. Would I want to get my CPC and my CPC right off the rip? Absolutely. So that is my big recommendation. What I would say is if you are brand new to healthcare, you're brand new to any kind of medical stuff, I would go with your CPC, your coding certification, and get your billing certification, because a lot of people do start out in the billing department because I don't want to say they're lower positions than coding, but they are tiered usually lower than coding, and there's better opportunities to get in there than there are oftentimes directly in the coding department. So I started out doing charge entry. I just posted stuff like the doctor said bill a 99214 and here's the diagnosis, and I punched that into the billing system. I worked my way up to doing AR, so I would follow up on things that were denied, resubmit them, look at edits, post payments. So there's a lot of different opportunities that go on in the billing department than there are just in coding, because coding's like coding. You either code surgeries or E&Ms or diagnostic studies or whatever, but billing, there's a lot of different components that you can learn, like payment posting, denials, all that. Some of them do require contacting patients, not all of them though. But I think there's a lot of different things that you can do in billing and then work your way up to coding. And one of the perks of having that foot in the door is most organizations do have to prefer an internal candidate versus an external candidate, unless that external candidate has like some absolutely amazing credentials way above and beyond what their internal people do, because the internal people are already on payroll, they already are familiar with the culture, they already, are all set up, probably know the EMRs and all kinds of stuff. So they will very often prefer an internal candidate way above and beyond an external one. When I was a coding supervisor, I actually hired a very amazing coder who was working, I think, in the emergency department doing like registrations or something, and he was phenomenal, absolutely dedicated, wonderful, polite, just amazing coder. So but the big recommendation he had was that he was working in the emergency department, and one of the physicians there saw that he was doing such an amazing job that he contacted us and was like, you should hire this guy because he's fantastic. And he was an absolutely amazing coder, but he started out in registration. So good afternoon. I was wondering if you offer tutorials for complex surgical cases through my Contempo site. Not yet. That's something I'll work up to. And I do have some case studies that you can check out, though none of them are like, I wouldn't say any of them are super complex, although I guess I'm subjective on complex. I think neurosurgery is very complex, but I had one neurosurgery coder that pulled one of my skin procedures off of the printer one day, and she's like, this is ridiculous. I thought I wanted to learn plastic surgery, but here you go. You can take this. And I'm like, really? Because neurosurgery to me sounds like, it's brain surgery. Wouldn't you think it's complicated? Someone says, would I say the CPB test is easier in a way? I'm not sure. I have not taken that one yet. I do have the exam voucher, so I will be scheduling in the next year to take that exam. Marissa, if you're on, I know you just recently taken it. Can you weigh in on how you felt for the CPB versus the CPC exam? I'm not sure if it would really be considered easier. I kind of feel like it might be easier than the CPC because I imagine there's not as many exact coding cases as there is. But it sounds like maybe there would be some insurance stuff in there. I would imagine things like the birthday rule and stuff about Medicare and Medicare replacement plans. That's what I would anticipate would be on it. So people are saying, would billing be the better way and then continuing into coding? I would say so. I think it would be good to start in billing and then maybe work your way up to coding. If you're looking to cast a very wide net and say, hey, I'm looking for a billing coding-ish job, maybe start in billing and then get your way into coding. I think a lot of organizations, college-wise and education-wise, have these like Ed2Go programs and stuff where they are a little bit more geared toward billing. Like my community college one was just actually a billing certification. And then I learned coding after that. So yeah, Marissa says the CPP was easier, but only if you really know billing in and out. I was an exclusive denial management biller in the past role, so I was super prepared, but a ton of filling out CMS 1500 forms. Ugh. Okay. And knowing the CMS 1500 forms in and out. Okay. So it's funny, I actually purchased a pack of CMS 1500 forms off of Amazon. So maybe that's something that I'll have to eventually put on my list of videos to show how to fill out the CMS 1500 form. Or maybe Marissa, you can you can help tutor on that. But yeah, so that's, I really think if I would start maybe in billing and then go to coding, because it's the other thing I should have mentioned that I keep forgetting. So when I went to my community college, I got a grant, like a federal grant to cover my education through there. And then when I started at the local hospital in the billing department, what they did was they brought in an independent instructor to teach us medical coding. And the rule was, as long as you passed your coding certification exam, they would reimburse you for the cost of that instructor and the books and whatever the materials were. So I technically didn't even pay to become a certified coder because I was already working there as a biller, and they paid me back for having someone train me to be a certified coder to get my CPC certification. So that's another thing you might want to consider. And I have seen some organizations that do that too, that they'll say, hey, if you start in billing and you want to become a certified coder, we'll put you through a program that will you go through and will reimburse you for. Sometimes they have independent instructors, or sometimes they partner with a technical school or community college to make that happen. So I think I am done with my hour now. I want to just thank you guys so much. And if you really enjoyed this content, feel free to join our channel membership. It helps support me and the channel so that I can produce all kinds of extra videos and do more lives. I'm really hoping to do a lot more lives in 2021. So maybe not even just always Saturdays. Maybe I might be doing some lunch and learns in there as well. So feel free to join the channel membership. Again, I am here for you all the time, though, providing free content. It's just that if you get join our paid membership with that join button at the bottom, you get extra benefits like Marissa's showing off. She has the little icons next to her name. She has she has emojis that she gets. There's community only posts. You get your name on the end credits when I post my Tuesday, Thursday videos. You get your name on the end credits if you are in gold or platinum membership status. And then platinum members get the cool takeouts and blooper reels that I post in the community only tab. So with that being said, I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that tuned in today. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button to give that video a big thumbs up. So the join button is under the channel. I think it's in the channel description. There's a join button, and then there's also one in the channel. If you look at the channel itself, there's a little button that says join. I think it's next to the subscribe button. Thank you guys, everyone. I hope you all have a phenomenal new year. I will see you guys early in 2021, and we will talk about maybe doing some goal setting stuff for all of you for 2021, how to crush our goals. And thank you so much for supporting me and the channel. I am just so in awe of the growth that I've had in 2020, and I can't wait to just knock it out of the park in 2021. So thank you guys so much. I will see you guys soon.